The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly grocery budget. She stared at it for a full minute before the words finally arranged themselves into something her brain could process. Marcus Whitfield and Vanessa Chen request the pleasure of your company at their wedding celebration. The same Marcus who had promised her forever 3 years ago. The same Marcus who had left her 2 weeks before their own wedding with a text message that said he'd met someone else. Sophia's hands trembled as she set the invitation on her kitchen counter, right next to the stack of unpaid bills and the rejection letter from yet another gallery that didn't want to show her paintings. At 32, her life looked nothing like she'd imagined. She worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, spent her weekends painting in her cramped apartment, and hadn't been on a date in over a year. Meanwhile, Marcus had clearly moved on, found someone new, and was rubbing it in her face with expensive cardstock and calligraphy. The worst part was the handwritten note at the bottom. Sophia, I know this might seem strange, but you are such an important part of my life. I'd really love for you to be there to celebrate this next chapter. It would mean a lot to both Vanessa and me. She wanted to burn it. She wanted to RSVP no and spend that Saturday doing literally anything else. But she knew Marcus. This was a power move, a way of showing her that he'd won, that he'd moved on while she was still stuck in the same place. Absolutely not. Her best friend, Riley said when Sophia called her that evening. You are not going to that wedding alone. You'll show up. Everyone will pity you, and Marcus will get exactly what he wants, which is to feel superior. You need a date, a spectacular date. I don't have a spectacular date, Sophia said flatly. I don't have any date. I don't even have a houseplant that's still alive. Then we'll find you one. We have 6 weeks. That's plenty of time. But 6 weeks turned out not to be plenty of time at all. The dating apps were a nightmare of awkward coffee dates and men who talked exclusively about cryptocurrency or their ex-wives. Sophia's limited social circle yielded no prospects. Riley even tried to set her up with her dentist's brother, but that ended disastrously when he spent 2 hours explaining his collection of antique spoons. As the wedding date crept closer, Sophia's desperation grew. She was sitting in a coffee shop 3 weeks before the wedding, working on a freelance logo design and trying not to think about her looming humiliation, when someone bumped her table. Coffee sloshed dangerously close to her laptop, and she looked up ready to glare. Instead, she found herself staring at the most intense pair of gray eyes she'd ever seen. I'm so sorry, the man said, steadying her cup with quick reflexes. That was entirely my fault. Please let me buy you another coffee. It's fine, Sophia said automatically. But he was already flagging down a server. Up close, he was striking in a way that made her forget how to form coherent sentences. Tall, probably in his late 30s, with dark hair starting to silver at the temples and a jawline that belonged on a statue. He wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than her car. I insist, he said, flashing a smile that did dangerous things to her heart rate. I'm running on about 3 hours of sleep and my coordination is suffering. The least I can do is replace what I nearly destroyed. The server appeared, took orders for 2 fresh coffees, and disappeared. The man gestured to the empty chair across from Sophia. May I, just for a moment? I promise I'm not usually this clumsy or this forward, but you look like you're having the kind of day that I'm currently having. Sophia glanced at her screen, where the logo she'd been working on looked increasingly terrible. What gave it away? The expression of someone who's been staring at the same problem for too long and wishing the universe would intervene. He extended his hand. Ethan Crawford. She shook it, feeling the calluses that seemed at odds with the expensive suit. Sophia Martinez. And you're right about the universe intervening. This logo is fighting me. Ethan leaned forward slightly, looking at her screen with genuine interest. The tech startup. How did you know? The generic minimalist aesthetic and the startup jargon in the brief. I've seen about 100 of these in the last year. They all want to look innovative while being exactly like everyone else. He paused. Sorry, that's probably not helpful. No, that's exactly the problem, Sophia said, surprised by his insight. They want me to design something unique that's also completely safe and familiar. It's impossible. They talked for 20 minutes, the conversation flowing easily from design to art to the general absurdity of modern work culture. Ethan was sharp, funny, and actually listened when she spoke, which was rare enough to be noteworthy. When his phone buzzed for the 3rd time, he glanced at it and sighed. I have to get back. Board meeting in 30 minutes, but this has been the best part of my day by far. He pulled out a business card, hesitated, then wrote something on the back before handing it to her. My personal number, if you ever want to grab coffee intentionally instead of as a collision recovery. I'd really like that. Sophia looked at the card. Ethan Crawford, Chief Executive Officer, Crawford Technologies. Her eyes widened. Crawford Technologies was one of the biggest tech companies in the state. She'd seen articles about Ethan Crawford, the young CEO who turned his father's failing software company into a multi-million-dollar empire. You're serious? About wanting to see you again? Completely. He smiled again, and this time it was softer, almost vulnerable. Fair warning, I'm terrible at work-life balance and I have a tendency to check my email at inappropriate times, but I make a mean omelet and I'm genuinely interested in hearing more about your art. Before Sophia could second-guess herself, she heard herself saying, I have a strange question. How do you feel about weddings? Ethan blinked. That is a strange question. Context: my ex-fiance is getting married in 3 weeks. He invited me, probably to gloat. I need a date so I don't show up alone and pathetic. I know this is insane and we just met, but you seem nice and you clearly successful enough that it would make him feel at least a little bit bad about being a terrible person. And I promise I'm not usually this forward, but I'm kind of desperate. She ran out of breath and waited for him to make an excuse and flee. Instead, Ethan started laughing, a genuine warm sound that made the other coffee shop patrons look over. That is the most honest thing anyone has said to me in months. Okay, yes, I'll be your date for your ex's wedding, really. Really, on one condition: you let me take you to dinner first. A real date, not just a transactional arrangement. If we're going to convince your ex that you've moved on spectacularly, we should probably actually know each other. They went to dinner that Friday at a small Italian place that Sophia would never have been able to afford on her own. Ethan showed up in jeans and a casual button-down, looking somehow more attractive than he had in the suit. Over pasta and wine, they traded stories. Sophia learned that Ethan had taken over his father's company at 26 when his father had a stroke, that he'd spent the last 12 years building it back from near bankruptcy, that he had a younger sister he adored and a complicated relationship with his mother who thought he worked too much. She's not wrong, Ethan admitted. I basically live at the office. My last relationship ended because she said I was married to my company. She was probably right about that too. When did it end? Sophia asked. 2 years ago. I haven't really dated since. Every time I tried, I just couldn't get invested. Work always seemed more important, more real. He looked at her over his wine glass. But sitting here with you feels different. I don't want to check my phone. I don't want to be anywhere else. Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks. You're very good at this. At what? Making someone feel like they matter. Ethan's expression grew serious. You do matter, and your ex is an idiot for not seeing that. They had 2 more dates before the wedding, and each one left Sophia more confused about what was real and what was performance. Ethan was attentive, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in her life. He came to her apartment and looked at her paintings, offering thoughtful commentary that showed he actually understood what she was trying to express. He texted her good morning and asked about her day. He made her laugh until her stomach hurt, but a small voice in her head kept whispering that this was temporary, that after the wedding he disappeared back into his high-powered life and she'd be left alone again. She tried not to think about it, tried to just enjoy the moment, but the fear lingered. The night before the wedding, Ethan took her shopping. You're not wearing something you already own, he said when she protested. This is a statement. Remember, we're making your ex regret every life choice that led him away from you. They ended up at a boutique where the cheapest dress probably cost more than Sophia's rent. The saleswoman brought out option after option, but Ethan kept shaking his head. Not right. She needs something that makes her feel powerful, not pretty. There's a difference. Finally they found it. A deep emerald green dress that hugged her curves and made her skin glow. It was elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without trying too hard. When Sophia stepped out of the dressing room, Ethan stood up from his chair, his expression unreadable. That's the one, he said quietly. That's absolutely the one. Ethan, I can't let you buy this. It's too much. It's already done, he said, nodding to the saleswoman who was discreetly running his credit card. Consider it combat armor. Every warrior needs the right equipment. The wedding was held at an estate outside the city, all manicured gardens and string lights and the kind of casual elegance that required enormous amounts of money to achieve. Sophia's stomach churned as Ethan's car pulled up to the valet stand. I can't do this, she said suddenly. This was a mistake. Let's just go. Ethan turned off the engine and shifted to face her. Look at me, she did. You are brilliant and talented and stronger than you think. You're here because you deserve closure, because you deserve to hold your head high and show that man that leaving you was the biggest mistake of his life. And I'm here because in the last 3 weeks, you've become the best part of my day. And I want to stand beside you while you do this brave thing. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Is this real? Us, I mean. Or are we just playing parts? Ethan reached over and took her hand. It's real for me. I know it started as a favor, but Sophia, I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, maybe ever. So yes, it's real, at least on my side. Mine too, she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and when they pulled apart, Sophia felt ready to face whatever waited inside. The ceremony was beautiful in that generic, expensive way. Sophia sat with Ethan in the back, his hand warm in hers, and watched Marcus pledge his life to Vanessa. She waited to feel something, pain or regret or anger, but all she felt was a distant sense of relief. That could have been her life, but it wasn't. She'd been freed to find something better. The reception was harder. Marcus spotted them immediately, and Sophia watched his expression shift from surprise to calculation as he took in Ethan's obvious wealth and the way he looked at her. During cocktail hour, Marcus approached with Vanessa in tow. Sophia, I'm so glad you came. His smile was plastic, his eyes moving between her and Ethan assessingly. And you brought a friend. This is Ethan Crawford, Sophia said, pleased that her voice came out steady. Ethan, this is Marcus and Vanessa. Recognition flashed across Marcus's face. Everyone in their industry knew who Ethan Crawford was. The Ethan Crawford of Crawford Technologies. Guilty, Ethan said pleasantly, wrapping an arm around Sophia's waist. Sophia's told me a lot about you. Nothing good, I hope, Marcus said, trying to make it sound like a joke. It fell flat. Actually, she's been incredibly gracious, Ethan said. Much more so than you probably deserve. But then, Sophia has more class in her little finger than most people have in their entire body. Vanessa looked uncomfortable. Marcus's smile tightened. Well, I'm glad she's moved on. We both have. It all worked out for the best. Absolutely, Sophia said, and she meant it. Looking at Marcus now, she couldn't imagine what she'd seen in him. He seemed small somehow, not physically but in spirit. Ethan, standing beside her, was everything Marcus wasn't. Genuine, secure, kind. Marcus and Vanessa moved on to greet other guests. Ethan leaned down to whisper in her ear. You okay? More than okay, Sophia said, and she realized it was true. Thank you for being here. Nowhere else I'd rather be. They danced later, Ethan holding her close as a string quartet played something slow and sweet. Other guests watched them, whispered, wondering who the handsome CEO was and how Sophia had landed him. Let them wonder, she thought. For once in her life, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The moment that changed everything came during the toasts. Marcus's best man had just finished a rambling speech about brotherhood and destiny. The microphone was being passed around for anyone else who wanted to share, and suddenly Ethan was standing up, taking it. I know I am not technically supposed to speak, since I didn't know the groom until about an hour ago, he began, and there was polite laughter. But I wanted to say something about marriage, about commitment, about finding the right person. Sophia's heart started pounding. What was he doing? I've spent the last 12 years of my life building a company, Ethan continued. I've sacrificed relationships, friendships, time with family, all in pursuit of success, and I achieved it. By any metric, I've won. But the thing about winning alone is that it doesn't mean much when you have no one to share it with. He looked directly at Sophia, and the rest of the room seemed to disappear. 3 weeks ago I bumped into someone in a coffee shop. Literally bumped into her. And in the conversation that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt present. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. She asked me to come to this wedding as a favor. And I said yes because something told me I needed to say yes. Marcus was staring at him, Vanessa's hand tight on his arm. The whole room was silent. But here's what I've realized tonight. Watching two people pledge their lives to each other. I don't want to be here as a favor. I don't want to be playing a part or making a point. I want to be here because the woman I came with is the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and I want to stand beside her, not just tonight, but always. Ethan walked over to where Sophia sat, frozen in her chair. He knelt down in front of her, taking her hands in his. Sophia Martinez, I know this is insane. I know we've only known each other 3 weeks, but I also know that I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I don't have a ring because I didn't plan this. I didn't plan any of this, but I'm asking you anyway, in front of all these people, to take a chance on me, to let this be real, to let us be real. Are you proposing? Sophia asked, her voice shaking. Not exactly, not yet. I'm asking you to be my girlfriend, officially, publicly really. And then, if you'll have me, after we've done this right, after we've built something real, I'm going to ask you to marry me. But today, right now, I'm just asking you to say yes to trying. Tears were streaming down Sophia's face. The logical part of her brain was screaming that this was crazy, that you couldn't fall in love in 3 weeks, that this would end badly. But the rest of her, the part that had come alive over the past few weeks, that had remembered what it felt like to be seen and valued and cherished, was screaming even louder. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll try. Ethan pulled her to her feet and kissed her, and the room erupted in applause, not for Marcus and Vanessa, but for them. Sophia caught a glimpse of Marcus's face, red and angry, before Ethan spun her around and she stopped caring what her ex thought about anything. They left the reception early, driving back to the city with the windows down and the night air rushing in. Ethan kept one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers, and Sophia felt like she was flying. That was insane, she said, starting to laugh. You just not proposed to me in front of 100 people at my ex's wedding. I know, Ethan said, grinning. I've never done anything that impulsive in my life. My board of directors would have a collective heart attack. Are you going to regret it tomorrow? He pulled the car over to the side of the road, put it in park, and turned to face her. Sophia, I am going to wake up tomorrow and every day after that grateful that I bumped into your table. I meant every word I said. This is real for me. You're real for me. She kissed him then, deep and thorough, trying to pour everything she felt into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Take me home, Sophia whispered. They spent the night talking, kissing, making plans that seemed impossible and perfect all at once. Ethan told her about the foundation he wanted to start, using his company's success to fund art programs in underprivileged schools. Sophia told him about the series of paintings she'd been too afraid to show anyone. Portraits of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. They talked about the future like it was a sure thing, like they had all the time in the world to figure it out. As the sun started to rise, casting golden light through Sophia's apartment windows, Ethan pulled her close. "I'm going to do this right," he said. "I'm going to court you properly. Dates and flowers and meeting each other's families. I'm going to prove to you that this isn't just some impulsive decision." "I believe you," Sophia said. And she did. The story could have ended there, with the promise of a future together. But life, as Sophia had learned, rarely follows the script we write for it. The next months were harder than either of them anticipated. Ethan's work was demanding, pulling him away for days at a time. Sophia's insecurities, built from years of feeling inadequate, didn't disappear overnight. They fought about time and priorities and fear. But they also laughed. They went to art galleries and hiking trails and hole-in-the-wall restaurants. Ethan surprised Sophia by funding a show of her work at a prestigious gallery, then surprised her more by being genuinely hurt when she accused him of using his money to fix her problems. They learned each other's edges and soft spots, the ways they needed to be loved and the ways they needed space. 8 months after the wedding, Ethan proposed for real. Not at a fancy restaurant or a romantic getaway, but in Sophia's apartment while she was painting, wearing his old t-shirt and covered in smudges of blue and gold. He walked in from a business trip, dropped his suitcase and said, "Marry me." Sophia turned from her canvas, brush still in hand. "What? Marry me? I know I said I'd wait, that I'd do this properly, but I can't wait anymore. I want to wake up to you every morning. I want to build a life with you. I want to fight and make up and grow old together. So marry me, please." This time he had a ring, a simple band with a single emerald that matched the dress she'd worn to Marcus's wedding. Sophia looked at it, then at him, and felt certainty settle into her bones. "Yes," she said. "Absolutely yes." They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. Riley cried through the whole thing. Ethan's sister gave a toast about how she'd never seen her brother this happy. Sophia wore a dress she'd designed herself, and Ethan couldn't stop staring at her. During their first dance, Sophia thought about the invitation that had arrived on that Tuesday so long ago, how she'd trembled looking at it, how desperate and lost she'd felt. That version of herself seemed like a stranger now. She'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she could see what she might find. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, pulling her closer. "About how grateful I am that Marcus invited me to his wedding," she said. "About how the worst day of my life led to the best thing that ever happened to me." "You don't really think that," Ethan said. "I do. If he hadn't sent that invitation, if I hadn't been desperate enough to ask a stranger to be my date, we might never have met. Or we might have met and I would have been too closed off to let you in." Ethan considered this. "I bumped into your table before you asked me to the wedding. True, but I might not have given you my number. I might have said I was busy. The wedding was what made me brave enough to take a chance." "Then I'm grateful to Marcus too," Ethan said, "for being just enough of an asshole to push you towards something better." Sophia laughed. And Ethan spun her around the dance floor, and their families and friends watched and smiled. Later, when people asked them how they met, they'd tell the story of the wedding, of the fake date that became real, of the CEO who stayed not for obligation but for love. They'd tell it with laughter and affection, making it into a story with a happy ending. But the real story, Sophia knew, wasn't about an ending at all. It was about a beginning. About choosing to be brave when everything in you wants to hide. About taking a chance on someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses to stay. About learning that sometimes the things we think will destroy us are actually clearing the path for something better to emerge. As she danced with her husband under lights that sparkled like stars, Sophia sent a silent thank you to that scared, desperate version of herself who had asked a stranger for help. That woman had been braver than she knew, and her courage had led to this moment, this man, this life that felt almost too good to be true but was somehow, miraculously, real. The music played on, and Sophia let herself sink into the moment. Into Ethan's arms, into the beautiful uncertainty of a future they'd built together. The wedding invitation that had once represented her failure now felt like a gift. A strange and twisted blessing that had brought her exactly where she needed to be. And when Ethan whispered "I love you" against her ear, she whispered it back and meant it with everything she had.